Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. We are recording today from Taos, New Mexico, and I have a great guest for you. So I'm on a little bit of a vacation, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to interview Jerry Fletcher and reintroduce him to you guys. Those of you who followed the Why Not Wednesday podcast have heard from Jerry before, but this is his first time on the Lead Different podcast. We're at a new venture at Why Not Leadership, and we're bringing you some new guests that definitely know a thing or two about leading different. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest, Jerry Fletcher. He is a messaging master and a trust-based marketing strategist. With over 50 years as a marketing rainmaker, Jerry Fletcher is the founder and CEO of 𝗪𝗋 Marketing and a master at building brands through trust. He is a seasoned professional speaker since 1993. Jerry has helped launch over 347 brands successfully. He specializes in crafting trust-based strategies for coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. He helps them grow their brand, their business, and their impact. From doubling a financial planner's income to boosting a software company's sales by $100,000 a month. Jerry's impact is both proven and powerful. He's named startups, raised millions in funding, and continues to guide businesses towards sustainable success. So without any further ado, let me bring to the stage our good friend, Jerry Fletcher. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Good to see you.
Great to see you. How are you doing today? How is your new city?
If I could get out and around a little bit more, I could tell you it's I have no picture in my mind of anywhere around me. It's so new that I haven't had a chance to really kind of get that map in my mind yet. So every time somebody says, you really ought to go to this restaurant over on when they name a street, and I go, really? I'd love to, if I knew where that street was.
So you're fairly new. I mean, I know that was a big move, Jerry. First of all, let me start with this. First of all, thank you for being on. Thank you for being on the Lead Different podcast and sharing your wisdom with our audience. But I did want to get back to, hey, you just made a transcontinental move
Yes.
all the way from Seattle to Washington, D.C. That's a big change.
Well, it was from Portland, but it's just like going
Portland.
to Seattle. Yes, it's a big change, and it was health reasons initially, but now I'm here, and my daughter doesn't have to get on an airplane and fly for 9 hours to just pay a visit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You get to be near your daughter, and you get to continue your business. What's been the biggest change for you?
I think the biggest change has been I really wasn't used to the idea of cold weather. I mean, living in Oregon, near the coast, you've got that breeze coming off the Pacific all the time. So, if it gets below 50 degrees, you think it's cold. Here, 50 degrees is a good day.
Yeah, especially in the winter, right? It's a different kind of cold on the East Coast than on the West Coast.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jerry, you're on the Lead Different podcast, and one of the things I love to feature is how people do it differently. What are you doing different than everybody else that people can take advantage of? What are you doing in the world that other people are not doing? And one of the things that I know is big for you and for 𝗪𝗋 Marketing is building trust-based brands. You speak on it. You frequently post on LinkedIn about it. And trust is a big part. Building trust is a big part of your business. You've been doing this for a long time, and you've been doing it successfully over 50 years. Why is trust so important, Jerry?
Well, I mean, think about it. People like to do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. Okay. And that last piece is one of the hardest things to get today. If you pay attention to it, like I do, there's an outfit called Edelman, which is a PR firm around the world. They do a survey each year called the Edelman Trust Barometer, right? This year they did it in 28 countries around the world. They interviewed 33,000 people, and they found that the single biggest problem in the world is the lack of trust.
Mm.
And so, and the only way that they've suggested that you can resolve that is to literally have face-to-face conversations. I mean, we can do it nicely this way, and it works for a while. But the real key is when you can sit down across the table from somebody and look into their eyes and actually see them. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what difference that can make. So what I'm trying to do while I'm here, I contacted some old friends that I'd worked with over the years and let them know I was coming. And so next week I'll be meeting with a very special group a friend of mine started. Just me and him and 60 CEOs. Tough room.
Just a small group of your closest friends, right?
Well, but here's the thing. When I talked to Mark about it, I said, I'm coming out there. Is there anything you can suggest? And he said, my group. I went, okay, fine. What's your group, right? And I said, well, geez, Mark, it's a lot of CEOs and your word. And he said, look, I know you. You'll just fit right in. It's not a problem. You'll be able to talk to everybody in words and things that they understand. And that's really a nice tribute from an old friend who I only saw a couple of times a year, because when we met and we worked together on some things for an association, he was on the East Coast and I was on the West Coast. And the only time we actually worked was after 11 o'clock at night for me, which was in the middle of the night for him.
Right.
But we were both night owls, so it worked out. And the friendship stayed strong. And although we could only meet at the association's annual meetings a couple of times a year, that was it. So anyway, it's a great way to get back into the swing of actually networking with people. One of the things I think is important for any consultant or coach is to network. You just can't ever stop.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that the importance of networking. I hear it all the time. You got to have conversations. You bring something up that I think is missing in today's world, and maybe it's the younger generation that's doing more of it. But you can't live always on Zoom. You can't live always on conferences. So, but it's also cost prohibitive to travel and get to meet all your clients. I set a goal this year to meet as many of my clients in person as possible. I get a chance to see you at least once a year, get to shake your hand and look you in the eye. And like I do that with Rosie Ward. I do that with a few of the people in my life that are important, that help guide, have helped guide White Knot leadership, as have you. But what do you say to that? Do you have to do more local business, or do you need to just travel more in order to get those connections?
The answer is yes. The thing is, you need to do the local business, and that's important. And it's important to build those relationships and continue them. Like when I was back in Oregon, I used to have lunch with one of my clients he'd been a client for like 30 years. We'd have lunch twice a month.
Right.
But he's also my CFP, so it was kind of a nice way for both of us to write one off. But you try to do that. But what I've found, and when people say, geez, it costs too much to do it. Well, one of the things I'm doing is I'm starting a junto this year, which is another way to call something like a mastermind group, right?
Right.
And one of the parts of that mastermind group is that we are going to meet somewhere in the country, in the USA, once a year. And we're all going to fly in and meet there for about 2 or 3 days on me. Okay. So when you say, is it worth it? Yes. To get in front of those people face to face, comfortably with them, it's worth it to me to pay for that 2 or 3 days in a resort somewhere. They're going to have to fly on their own ticket, but as far as I'm concerned, it's worth the price of having them come there. And I think if you talk to any of these folks, all happen to be CEOs, if you talk to any of them, they'd all say the same thing. They look forward to it because it gets them away from their business. It gets them more personally involved with some people they already know.
Right.
And they can talk to about anything.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the discussions over a quiet, small drink late in the evening can get very interesting.
What do you say? That is so true, Jerry. And I, I'm a beneficiary of many of those conversations. As you know, I spent over 30 years in corporate America, and the last few years in corporate leadership. And one of the things I looked forward to every year was that annual sales meeting, where you get to meet all of your not. I used to see the managers all the time. That I was a national sales director, so I'd see my managers at least once a quarter. Sometimes, depending on how well they were performing or how poorly they were performing, I would get to see them more, right? But for the most part, I could guarantee to see them at least once a quarter. But the producers, the guys on the front line, the guys and gals on the front lines, those are people that I would only see once in a while, and I definitely could see them. And I remember those conversations late at night over a drink, and you're just getting to know people and understanding what drives them, understanding what's important to them, and then even getting a feel for whether or not they're ready to step up in the succession plan, right? Are these people that I want taking over when their boss retires or moves on to another role, or is one of them ready to take over my role when I'm ready to move on? And so that is I forget that I kind of grew up in that too, but there's a lot that's happened over the last few years to change that. The most important and most significant event was the fact that we had COVID, and it took us out of our regular routine of seeing people in person, traveling to see people. Even Rotary clubs, even local groups were not able to get together during that time. And there's been a recovery period since then. What do you say to people who grew up in that era? Maybe they were in college at the time, they're now in the professional world, and haven't really developed those skills to meet in person or even see the importance in it.
Well, I talk to a lot of folks that are in the position where they're having to counsel those kinds of folks, and the simplest way to make it work is the coaches and the consultants that I work with. I say, look, take the time. If it's local, go sit down and have a meal with them. Go sit down and talk to them in person, and tell them that what you need to do is have that interpersonal relationship with your clients, with the folks that you work with.
Right.
Suddenly, what happens when the folks that I work with do it, it's sort of like what they call it when you pass on a favor that you pay it forward.
Right.
What happens is they start to pay it forward, and the success that comes from a relationship that's that much stronger is very, very powerful in getting folks to try it again and to try it with someone else. And when someone that is a client of yours says, you really need to talk to this friend of mine, and talks to the friend and says, you really need to talk to this person that I'm working with.
Right.
Suddenly, the referral starts, and it's not referrals, by the way, are not a comfortable thing for people to do. But the most powerful testimonial that you can get is when somebody says, you really ought to talk to, and as I've done in the past, I said, you really ought to talk to Dan about this. He knows about how, team workshops should be done. He knows how to get people to jump in and do it. You need to talk to Dan.
Right.
And it's very powerful.
Yeah, that is very, very, very powerful. And you bring up something that's really important. And we're going to continue to talk about trust, Jerry. A friend of mine wrote a book, a friend of ours, Can I Borrow Your Car? And he says referrals is like letting somebody borrow your car.
Exactly.
If I'm taking my reputation and staking it on Jerry, if I'm going to say, hey, you know what, if you really want to build your business and you want to build your brand, I have somebody that I want to introduce you to. When I introduce Jerry Fletcher to that person, it's like I'm letting Jerry Fletcher borrow my car. And you'd better return that car with a full tank of gas, and it better be cleaner than when you got it, right? Because it's my reputation, right? If that person has a bad experience with Jerry Fletcher, you can bet I'm probably not going to let him borrow my car again. I'm not going to recommend him again. What do you think about that example?
Well, I think it's a perfect example. And I happen to know that you have referred me, right? But I also know that when you refer me, you say, okay, one thing you should understand, this guy's blunt. He's going to tell it to you the way it is. And Just wait, because he'll not only tell you what the problem is, he'll tell you why and how to fix it.
Yeah.
And I literally, I've had that played back to me from folks that you've referred to me.
Yeah.
It's and the first time I heard it, it was like, Dan, what are you doing to me? And then the next time I went, wait a minute, he's just telling it the way it is. That's perfect, you know?
Well, I think it's there's an art to referrals. And Mike Garrison, by the way, Mike Garrison, shout out to you for the book. Can I borrow your card? He's the author and great guy, by the way. I probably do need to connect you with Mike Garrison. He's doing some great work in the world of how to build a business on referrals.
Right.
But I think as a referrer, you have a responsibility. It's a three-way relationship when we're talking about something like that,
Sure.
right? And what I mean by that is there is the referral, there's the referee, the person we're referring you to, and the referrer, which is me. And all of us can lose something. All of us can win something. We wanted to make it a win-win-win for everybody. But I think setting those expectations is important. I know what you're going to get from Jerry, and it comes from the knowledge that I have, the experience that I have from hiring you to help me launch my business, and then from working with you as a fellow YOS coach. Listen, I have the perfect blueprint for how to interview or how to introduce Jerry Fletcher. And I always say, look, his why is to find a better way. He is going to find a better way. And if he can find a better way for you to run your business and share it with you, he will do that. How he does that is by making sense of things. So he is a problem solver. He is somebody that's going to look at a problem and come up with solutions. But one thing I also know about Jerry is you can trust him. He is somebody who is as dependable as he is honest, as he is, hardworking. If he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. So, but when you come at stuff from a better way and make sense perspective, I know, hey, you're there to make it better and you're there to help make it make sense. And there's not a whole lot of room to mess around, and you better do what you say you're going to do. So why not prepare that person for Jerry so that if they're looking for what Jerry's got to offer, they'll hire him. If they're not, they won't. Right.
Well, the interesting thing that has happened to me is, I'm a better way. I'm always looking for, how can I improve this? How can this process be easier, faster, better, whatever? Okay. But over the years, and I've been at this for now 30 plus years, I figured something out. The innovation, the better way, the new thing is not always the best. So I have learned to test that new way, that innovation, against the processes that I know work.
Yes.
And what I've found is that it's not always good to do it the new way, but if you have something that works and you keep doing it and you keep testing against it, it makes it a little bit better each time.
It's funny you say that, Jerry. It's graduation season. So I was at a graduation and listening to the keynote speaker. One of the speakers was a retired Army colonel. And he told a story when he was a young lieutenant. He said it was the best advice he ever got. He's probably a better way guy. But the general told him, Lieutenant, not every great idea you have is a good idea. Right. And I think you as a better way, as you're finding your way in the world, you realize that not every better way to do it is one we need to implement. Right.
Exactly. And I think I know a few of those generals. In fact, I can remember once I was a young lieutenant in Korea, safety officer for a unit, and we were firing a battalion test, and the general flew in his helicopter, landed a few, click out and just a little bit out, and at the same time, we used the same firing range as the North Koreans, right? They were walking mortars up the hill towards where his helicopter landed. So I ran over there, saluted smartly, and said, "Sir, get your ass out of here because they're firing at us." And he said, "Thank you, Lieutenant," and off he went. And that was a good idea, believe me.
That's a really good idea, right? Let's not get the general blown up while he's in my area.
Exactly. But the thing is, you get these. It takes a while to get your spurs and to find out what's working, what's not working.
Right.
And the real critical element is you never stop looking for something to do it better. But at the same time, you really have to measure it, make sure that it's working. It's just like, okay, take AI. Everybody's up on AI these days, right? And it's a great thing. It works. It does wonderful things. But one of the little tests that I have some friends that are fairly well up in the business of anything that you do online, right? And they've run tests, and what they've found is that if they put a human being into the equation in terms of writing copy that's there to persuade and convince and so on, that suddenly the copy is 8 times better or 8 times more profitable than it was if you just let the AI do it.
Right.
Now think about that. I mean, just having a person who knows and understands what you're trying to do, look at it, they can tweak it just that little bit. And that's the difference. That's what makes the difference in a lot of things that I do. I mean, I quite truthfully, when AI first came out, I wrote a column about it and I said, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And then about 3 months later, I said, well, look at all these different things you can do with it. Now, at this point, I am actually doing an 8-week course right now with some friends that are very much into this business. And there's only, I think, 17 of us that are taking this course because it's high end and it's in the test phase. But I have to tell you, I did a thing the other night, and it's just one of those, let's take a look at my copy and what it says, right? And I said, what if I had a new tagline? What would you say my new tagline would be? Well, it gave me too many to even count, right?
Right.
But here I am scanning through them, and I look down, I go, that's interesting. And what the tagline suggested was, be heard, be seen, be chosen.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's powerful because literally, I wrote a book at one point, and the subtitle was "Be Seen, Be Heard, Speak to the People That Will Build Your Business." It's like, whoa, wait a minute. And when I looked at that line, I went, I could have written that if I'd had my wits about me.
Yeah. Well, it's so important, I think, especially with AI, and I see it all the time. I see you can tell the amateurs from the pros when it comes to using AI. I've seen people on LinkedIn. I've seen them post stuff on LinkedIn that literally has the AI prompt still in there that says, "Here's a great LinkedIn post that will attract your kind of audience," and then the post is there, and I'm like, that's just such an amateur mistake. You've got to put the human element. You've got to proof it. You can't just put it up there exactly the way it came out, because it does make mistakes, right?
Well, it does. It makes mistakes, and of course, don't even try to think about using it with when I'm going to say it in sound and audio, because it totally screws. The English language has too many words that mean something totally different, but they're spelled just slightly different, but they sound the same.
They sound exactly the same. Yeah, there's too many. Yeah, I think you have to use it very judiciously. That it can help you create copy, no doubt. It can help you systematize things. It can help you create outlines. But at the end of the day, there are still humans involved, and there's human error and there's computer error. And I've got all the empathy in the world for human error. I'm not going to forgive you if you just cut and paste. And now I'm getting a message from you that says, "Dear blank, insert name here." Come on, let's take a little bit of time and personalize it. And if you're using a system like Go High Level, which you're a master at, it has places for you to put the personalization, add the right personalization. I'm not big into automation. Again, probably because I learned from you that referrals are so much better than reaching out to 1,000 people and hoping to get 3, when I can get 3 from a group of 6 people if they're all referred strongly. If I get a strong referral from 6 people, 3 people will probably end up working with me, versus trying to reach 1,000 random names out of nowhere who may or may not be my ideal clients.
Well, if I get one more message, I mean, daily, I get these, "How would you like to buy 14,000 names to do this? I'm going, why would I do that?
Yeah.
I agree with you. Let's talk to just a few people. It's like, well, that kind of gets at one of the things that I think is really, really powerful. And I've seen you do this as well. So what I'm saying is true. Speaking is probably the best potential strategy that there is for almost any coach or consultant or entrepreneur, for the simple reason that it gets you in front of more prospects more quickly than any other way. And they have that personal interchange with you. Even if you're doing it online like this, they have that more personal feeling of having met with you, seen you, understanding you a little bit. So speaking is a really kind of a cool way to get people to move into your sphere and begin to get a chance to even talk to them, to begin that relationship that sooner or later you'll probably find a little bit of work with them. But from my standpoint, that's really the most powerful way that you can use as, again, a coach, a consultant, or an entrepreneur. One of the things I continually tell folks, in fact, I was on the phone the other day with a young man who's an entrepreneur who's looking for ways to generate funding for his business.
Right.
And I looked at his slide deck for that, and I said, let me suggest something. Do you know 3 or 4 CEOs that might buy your product? And he said, yeah. I said, fine. Pick up the phone and have lunch with each one of them and tell them, ask them what their major problem is. What is the thing that they're trying to do that, might impact on what you're trying to build in way of your product? And he said, okay, I'll do that. Right. Well, I got this email, and you can tell what somebody's mood is in the email. All the email said was, you were right. That's all it said.
It's it, right?
Simple. And it's so simple. And when people say, I don't really know what to tell people, well, then go talk to some. That's simple.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, speaking of that, you talk about the power of speaking. So you've got a LinkedIn newsletter coming up that you're gonna talk about the 10 steps to
that's
successfully.
I got to look at the date. That is
June 11th, right?
It's on the 11th. Yes, June 11th.
So tell us a little bit about that. Do you have something you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, can we put that screen up? And
yeah, let me let's see if we can get that on here. So tell us about this.
Well, basically, I've written across a couple of weeks, but the June 11th one is the one that sums this whole thing up. The whole idea, if you want to build your business, you can start local and you can go global. Okay, and the whole idea is building your business by speaking. Okay. So, and these are the points, and I'm going to run across it quickly because, again, it's in that newsletter on the 11th and on LinkedIn, and you can read it in depth. But basically, you find a group that includes a number of influential people that you could introduce the YOS to if you're trying to sell the YOS. Well, and where do you find those? Well, hey, go to your local chamber of commerce. Your local Rotary group. I don't care. Just to pick a group, any of them. Dan, I think you picked a Catholic school or something to start this process.
Well, I always work with leaders, right? So I'll pick the head of an organization, right? Or I chose the superintendent of the local Catholic schools, and then that led to, of course, me working with a lot of the schools, and so I think it's similar. I guess I might have learned that from you, Jerry.
Same process. So basically, what you do is you provide a YOS at no charge, so they get an idea of what it is, how it works. Okay, then you offer a team training. Okay, and you make sure that they understand that you're contributing your time. Okay, if you can, you have them pay for the discovery, so they have a little skin in the game. Always important to see if you can get them to have some skin in the game. And then you do a team training. Okay. Now you offer to speak to their group using the findings of that team. Okay. And you show the power of knowing your why. And many times it makes it easy for you to convince someone that we were working with in that team training to come aboard and speak with you, or to just be there and let folks know what they think. Have you done that, Sam?
Yes, I have, Jerry.
I thought you had, but I wasn't sure. Okay, so then the way I suggest in this series of slides is that you offer to do a fundraiser working with them. Okay, and that way they've got more skin in the game, but more importantly, you can help them generate some funding for that local organization or association or whatever it is, whether it's local, statewide, or whatever. And you just keep following this through and offering those services and offering to speak in front of people as you go. What you do is you work this forward so that you're moving from your local group, say a statewide group, to a regional group or to a national group. And as you do that, the audiences get a little bit bigger, but you still have the same possibility of reaching out and getting 3, 4, 5 people that want to do more.
Right.
And each time you do that, you wind up, if you speak and say a state association meeting, you may wind up with 5 different folks, but each one of them comes from a different company, And so there are 5 different teams that you have to train, and that opens the door to more. I mean, it just keeps, it's, I don't know how to describe it, but it's sort of like a Ponzi scheme. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and
But
bigger.
legal.
But legal, yes.
Yes.
And that's what you do. And that's part of what I'm doing right now. In fact, I can't say who, but I literally witnessed some problems in an organization.
Mhm.
And so I said to the new director of that organization, look, why don't I sit down with you and a couple of your people, and we'll talk about this. And by the way, here's a free YOS.
Yeah.
They went, oh, really? Because I know what's going to happen. This organization has a lot of young executives, and they are nationwide. And so I will be moved from here to the regional, to the and to the state, and then to multiple states, and so on. And it's just sort of like, how do I say this? It's building your own legacy. Simply go out and speak to folks and offer to help them, and suddenly they come back and they ask for more. Anyway, that's one of the best ways I know to build a business.
Well, Jerry, you talk about the YOS, but it could really be whatever it is that you offer, right? I mean, for you, you and I are both YOS coaches, but it could be the Kolbe, it could be whatever it is that you're offering. You offer them a taste, I think is what you're saying.
Yes.
And then once they get a taste of it, then they want to share it with their network, right? Then they want to share it with their organization, and then they want to share it with other people, and you get to be the expert that gets to show them that.
Well, and the nice part of this, the thing that, to bring back where we were talking about earlier, is that once you do this, it's natural to do a team meeting or a group or whatever,
right,
in person. And that brings younger people in who have not had that in-person experience. And all of a sudden they get it and they understand. And then when you say to them, if you use this idea of bringing people together like this in a group setting, and then just having conversations with them, do you think it might help your business?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's 2 things that I want to bring up from what you just talked about, because you're walking us through something that you wrote a book called Speak Your Way to Business Riches, which I've read and which you walked me through when I began my business. Tell us a little bit about how that is still applicable today, and where that advice that led to the book comes from.
Well, basically, you have to understand, I was, how do I say this? In 1993, I finally figured out that speaking would be a useful thing to do. I started my business in 1990. In 1993, I figured out it would be a useful thing to do. So I joined an organization called the National Speakers Association, which is the professional speakers organization here in the United States, the major one, I'll put it that way. And I learned a whole lot of things from those folks, but most of what I learned is how you address the people that hire you to do meetings and trainings and so on in a professional way. And so the book it's 145, 150 pages, and it's just chock full of how to do it and interesting information and checklists and things to fill out that will help you build what's needed to get people to hire you. It doesn't have this sort of how do you build this thing from local to global in it, but it's all the other stuff that you need to know how to do. I mean, for instance, a one sheet. People will say, well, what's a one sheet? Well, that's a single sheet of paper, 2 sides, that includes the information about the speeches that you do on a regular basis and why those are important to that association or organization or whatever it happens to be. And a little bit about you and your background and why they should trust you to do it and so on. Now, you can have one for all the speeches you do, which is most people starting out have it that way. But if you're like most of the professionals, you maybe do 2 or 3 different keynotes. And so you'll have one for each one of those keynotes. Currently, I have 3, and it's just a matter of what makes sense, and you can go out with those to anyone that you're talking to. The other thing is learning how to approach that meeting with a meeting planner. Okay, they may be called an event planner, a meeting planner. There's all different kinds of names for them, but in essence, they are meeting planners. And knowing and understanding what they're looking for is important. Now, one of the things that they look for is a demo reel, okay?
Mhm.
And they want to know what you can do. They want to see you in action, right? Well, I'm lucky because I have served in a couple of associations and situations where I was in the room when the committee was making the decision on who to hire for a keynote. And let me tell you, your demo reel, okay? The single most important thing to do in that demo reel is within the first 5 to 7 seconds, get them a picture of you and how dynamic you are on stage. And if there's a certain phrase or thing that you say that makes people, really come to you and maybe people remember you, use that in that first 5 to 7 seconds. Because I literally watched as a committee said, we need to have somebody do this. I had recommended, I think, 3 different folks. They pulled up the reels of those 3 people on a big screen TV. And within 30 seconds, they decided who the keynoter was going to be for a major meeting. Okay. It happens much faster than you might expect. So having a really good demo reel that really says this person is really powerful, they know what they're doing, is a good idea. I mean, again, that's just one thing that's written up in the book that I did. I'm going to probably do a revised edition here in the next year or so.
Yeah, what's changed? When did you publish the book originally, Jerry?
About 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah,
Maybe 3.
A lot can happen in 2 to 3 years, right? And that's why books get updated. What's the biggest change you've seen in the past 2 to 3 years that you think you might need to make sure you include? I love the thoughts that you shared on the demo reel, because I think the demo reel is important. People are looking, okay, how's this person going to present? How's this person going to be on stage with my audience? And again, I think you bring up another good point, is the importance of that meeting planner. That meeting planner's job is to make sure that meeting goes amazing and that people go away with an amazing experience. So if your demo reel doesn't have the energy, doesn't tell them what you're going to do and how you're going to impact people, you're probably not going to get hired.
Well, it's like your demo reel, I mean, it now has a standing ovation as you're introduced. I mean, hello. It's like, wow, this guy must be something, right? In any case, the thing that's changed most is, remember when I did the book initially, we were coming out of COVID. And so there was a whole lot of concern. Can you deliver online? Okay. There was a whole lot about that. There's certifications for it and all kinds of things. That's kind of gone by the wayside. Still, they want you to be able to deliver that way. But now what's important is, how do you do it literally in person? They want to have that. And the more important thing that's happened, and I think this is just a matter of the way businesses have gone, is they want you to be able to deliver not only in that keynote situation, but to take it from there and provide ongoing kinds of information and capabilities for them that can help them. In a case like yours, having you available to come in and sort of train the trainers in how to do the teamwork and leadership stuff that you do. I mean, that's important to them. So offering that service becomes a very, very powerful kind of thing. And knowing that it's available from you, that's the other piece. I hate to say this, but, never stop selling. Yeah, it's just that simple. Or marketing, whichever you prefer.
You know what, you call it selling, you call it marketing. You know what I call it? I call it solving problems. Because if you're solving problems, people are going to hire you. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. And here's the other thing I think people forget. Just because you're on stage, just because you're a keynote speaker, does not mean you're only there to educate. You're there to activate. You're there to get people, move them to action. And that action is hiring you and bringing you in. If they resonate, if your message resonates, they ought to bring you in to help them move forward, because you've got a solution. The reason you're there is because you have something that they probably can use, and they may not be aware that they needed it until they listen to you, and then you articulated it. What problem is it that you're going to solve for them? And then make yourself available. I think let's make sure you don't leave that stage without giving people an idea of how to take the next step.
Yeah, you have to make sure. Well, in online terminology, it's got to have a CTA, a call to action.
Yeah. No, that is so important, and it's such an important lesson to learn because you can spend a whole year giving a lot of great speeches and educating a lot of people, and not make a cent because you didn't have a call to action that involved you being able to help them further. And I think and Jerry, you do a good job of this. We have to remember the reason you're on a stage, the reason you're a speaker is because you've got something to offer, and the world needs it. And it is your responsibility to find those people that need it and help them. Now, that's the contribute in me coming out. But at the end of the day, we're here to make a difference. We're here to leave the world better than we found it.
Yep.
And one of the things I love about the work that you do, Jerry, is you help us. You help coaches, you help consultants, you help business owners become experts, become trusted experts in their field so they can go out and make the difference that God put us on this earth to make.
You got it. You got it. Absolutely, no doubt. I mean, it's like finding that phrase in the AI that came out of literally, how can I say this? I trained the AI about me before it actually got to that. And that's
Right.
another trick that I'll teach other folks, in the coming weeks in my LinkedIn newsletter. But those simple words, be seen, be heard, be chosen. Is there a consultant or a coach in the world that doesn't want that?
Yeah.
They want to be chosen.
Yeah.
And knowing how to do it is what I help folks do.
And you do it in such a good way. Jerry, what is different about working with Z-Axis than working with anyone else? I know what I got out of working with you, and I know what I continue to get out of just being associated with you. But if somebody doesn't know Z-Axis marketing and they're looking for someone to help them become a better speaker so that they can be more profitable, why should they choose Z-Axis marketing?
Well, I mean, just to be a better speaker is fine. I understand that, and I can help them do it. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, so I kind of know my way around it. And I know my way around it from the standpoint of what works in presentation, what works in leaving folks with that knowledge that you can do something for them, you can help them in addition to just being there on the stage, that you can give them something they can use today, but they ought to call you to do something about tomorrow. That's part of what I do. But the more important thing is, I hate to say this, but what I try to do is I try to get people to look at themselves and understand what their passion is, what drives them, what makes them work, and to take that and make it authentic, to be real when you're there. The best lesson I have from every client I've ever had is that they basically said, initially I had one client say, I thought he was crazy, but he wasn't. Because when I identified myself the way he said to do it, every single client I've had since remembers that. That's the key. I can find a way to help you be unique. And that's what makes the difference. Yeah, there are other folks that can do that. And I don't say that I'm better than anybody else. All I say is that, look, if it works, let's use it. If it doesn't work, fire me. But in most cases, I can find a way to help you in ways that you never thought of.
Right.
It's just a matter of making you think about things.
I think it's a great idea. The other thing that you talk about is, our good friend Paul Epstein, our fellow Y coach. Paul talks about the fact that anybody can come in and give you a keynote and give you a sugar high, right? That's what it is. You come out of that keynote and you're just so fired up to go do that next thing that you just heard from that amazing keynote speaker. But 3 days later, that sugar high is gone. And that's why it's important to have that next step so that you can implement the plan or go take that next step. You're doing something else too that I want you to talk about a little bit, because as you know, a lot of Y coaches listen to the Lead Different podcast. What is YOS Wisdom all about?
Oh, God. What happened was I had a number of folks that were that are also YOS coaches. As far as I know, I'm the only consultant who is a YOS certified coach, and as far as I know. What does that mean? Well, it means that I'll help you do what you need to do. What's the difference between a coach and a consultant? Coaches kind of tend to say, okay, I think that you need to figure out how to do this, and here's what you might do to do it, and it's up to you to do it. Whereas as a consultant, I've been known to roll my sleeves up and get dirty and get it done for you. And that's what becomes important. Most coaches can't write their own websites. I've written so many websites, I've forgotten how many at this point. But I know how to do it. And even more importantly, I know how to do it from a viewpoint of the customer that you're looking for, of the person you want to work with, rather than from your viewpoint, which is the single biggest problem with most websites.
Right.
That's one piece of it. Another piece of it is that particular website is for YOS coaches. If you've not been certified, it won't mean a whole heck of a lot to you. And I literally have run this out to folks, and YOS certified folks, and a couple of them have said, you know, you really ought to talk more about the certification and what that means and all that sort of thing, rather than, and I'm going, why? I'm just talking to coaches like you.
Right.
That's it. Nobody else.
Yeah.
You got to be certified in order to be
talking about targeting and being very specific on who you're talking to, right?
You got it.
That's very smart, Jerry. And that's something that you preach. You said something there that I think is important. I want to follow up on. You said, you know, they don't care about you. Clients don't care about you. They care about themselves. What can you do for me? I care what Jerry can do for me. Client cares what Dan can do for them, not where you've been. I don't want to hear your stories, right? I want to hear how are you going to help me? And you're really good at catching people and saying, hey, why is that on your website? How is that going to help them?
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, and this is a little secret sauce, I'll put it that way. One of the things that is important to people is knowing and understanding your story, okay? But not your story in the glorified way that most people put it out there. What they really want to hear is, did you stumble and fall? How did you get up and make it work better, right? Yeah. And the story I always tell is the same one. It's like, hey, I started my business, right? And I was doing a lot of work with three-dimensional kinds of things. So I called my business Z-Axis Marketing, right? Nobody could spell it. Nobody could remember the URL for it. And nobody called me because of it. What good did it do me? Okay.
Right.
But I learned from that. And now everything I do has my name on it, because people will remember your name much longer than they'll remember that funny name that you came up with for your company.
That is smart. You know, our podcast is called the Lead Different Podcast, but it's called the Dan Dominguez Lead Different Podcast. And I wonder where I heard that from, Jerry.
Gee, I wonder where you could have possibly heard that. But again, this is one of the problems that we all have. We all think, I got to have a wonderful name. I'm not going to have a brand if I don't have a great name. Well, guess what? Your brand is you.
You are your brand. Absolutely. Well, Jerry, we're getting close to the end here. What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody that is just starting their coaching and consulting career? What's the most important thing they can do to get started off on the right foot?
Oh boy. Understand your own why. That's the first piece. The second piece is, let that be a part of developing your brand, because people will respond to you much better if they believe you're real, if you're believable. Okay. It's I think more important than anything else is being believable, being approachable, being authentic, having integrity, and letting people know that they can trust you. Mm-hmm. It's, again, that old equation. I remember a good friend of mine, after we were dining in a little place, a little Chinese restaurant, and we got the fortune cookies, and mine said, the wise man knows everything. The shrewd one knows everyone. And my friend went, yeah, that's true as far as it goes. But if you're going to build a business, the single most important thing is who trusts you.
Yeah. Oh, that is good, Jerry. That is really, really good. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for spending 40 some minutes with our audience and sharing your wisdom here today. Jerry, that was a great answer. I love that. I think there's so much here. I'm going to talk to the audience real quick and say, guys, if you're getting value out of listening to Jerry, we're going to put his contact information in the show notes. Z-Access Marketing, Jerry Fletcher. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's very active there. He's also active in NSA and a lot of other things. If you got value out of the show, make sure you leave us a comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what we can do better in the future. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that we can get this message out to more of your friends and your colleagues. Share the podcast episode and let everyone know where to get some great leadership tips, some great marketing tips here on the Lead Different podcast, where we interview leaders who are willing to lead different every single week. Jerry, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you so much for being on the show. We look forward to having you on again, and I look forward to working with you continuously as you continue to elevate our game at Why Not Leadership and continue to elevate everybody's game that you work with. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day, and everybody, we'll see you next week on the Lead Different podcast.
Have a good one.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.